The Teen Titans faction in DC Dark Legion is one that was fairly incomplete when the game first launched. But over the last couple of months, we've seen several key champions being added to this faction that make it a lot stronger and much more viable in all game modes. And we expect to see several more Teen Titans added to the roster before the end of this year. So most likely you'll be seeing me again in a follow-up video where I talk about some of the additional Teen Titans champions and how that affects some of the roster moves that we're talking about in today's video. Be on the lookout for that coming down the road. But today, I want to talk about a couple of strong champions that you can build around that are Teen Titans. So let's jump in and talk about them. First, the Teen Titans faction bonus is going to increase Teen Titans champions crit damage by a certain percentage based on the amount of Teen Titans champions that are in the lineup. This is going to be incredibly important for certain champions, including Nightwing, in order to get more damage output for whatever game mode that you're playing in. Let's start with the Atom. So the Atom is a champion that was kind of frowned upon early on in the game. Basically, his ultimate has been adjusted. His kit has been, I would say, fixed. And he's relatively viable for certain niche uses now. Basically, what he used to do was he would blow up with his ultimate, do some AoE damage, and then leave the battlefield. But now he still does the same thing. It's just that his ultimate does significantly more AoE damage, and he stuns the entire enemy team for a couple of seconds. This is incredibly helpful for PvP, 3v3 strategic challenge, and even some training simulator modes where you really just need the ability to DPS down a couple of key enemies, and then the rest of the matchup is fairly straightforward and easy. So this is sort of a plug-and-play champion, highly recommended at the beginning of your playthrough of the game, but one that you'll probably stop using as much once you have some more powerful bleed champions. The nice thing about the Atom is he does have that Justice League tag synergy, and we'll talk about some of the use cases for that in a second. He also has the Metahuman tag, and Metahuman is becoming a very important tag for the game now with the introduction of some of these new assassin level champions that a lot of people are using. The next champion to highlight here is Cyborg, who's also going to have that Justice League synergy in addition to Teen Titans. And Cyborg is a champion that ends up getting used a lot with your Superman, Justice League lineups, and some other things like that. But he's one that is seeing considerable amounts of play with Nightwing teams, and that's for good reason. His ultimate is quite powerful, especially once you get him to higher star levels. And they just recently fixed his kit so that his last basic skill actually now hacks the system to extend the timer in Anti-Crime Network by 5 seconds, which is incredibly helpful over there. And then the other thing that they added is Cyborg is now going to gain energy at the beginning of the battle. That's something that was not part of his kit before, and that's going to make him incredibly important for teams that need to do additional damage at the very beginning of a fight. Red Robin is a Guardian champion who's going to have a little bit of Bat Family synergy, and a lot of people are probably going to gloss over Red Robin, not spend on him, and that's understandable. But if you are wanting to focus on Teen Titans and Bat Family, if you know that you really want to push for Nightwing and the bleed on your account, then you'll definitely want to make sure you put some stars into your Red Robin and give him some force so that he can be a solid damage sponge in the front of your roster. The nice thing about Red Robin with that Bat Family synergy is if you're able to get 3 Bat Family champions on the roster, you will increase crit rate by 15%. And again, that's just another really important metric for your Nightwing teams, and we'll talk about that when we do some team building at the end of the video. Now, I am going to completely skip over Arsenal. I really wish it was worth mentioning him in the video and that he was worth building. Obviously, you can see that I've invested a decent amount of Mythic Selector Shards into Arsenal, and I can actually take him up to 1 purple now, but it's still just not going to be enough to use him right now. We really need some more outsider synergy, but be on the lookout in the future. There's a chance that Arsenal could become viable. We're all kind of crossing our fingers that he will, at least those of us who spent to get him. But a cool counterattack champion that does have that Teen Titan synergy if you can figure out a way to add him into your roster. I do want to spend a moment on Robin. Robin, in my opinion, if you're going for a Bat Family and Teen Titans lineup, is the first champion that you're really going to put a lot of points into that's going to be your main damage dealer. He is an assassin class champion, so you can expect for him to do a ton of damage, whether that be single target or AoE damage, especially because of the way his ultimate works. But he's definitely going to be a champion that you're going to utilize for taking care of the back row on enemy teams. He's going to give you crit rate bonus. So just a really solid champion to start out with. And I've even seen people who have a well-invested Robin keep him in a team with Nightwing to do additional damage in game modes where you really don't need as much healing, or maybe you don't need more than one tank to get started in the match. And this is a nice thing about assassin teams is they don't really rely on tanks to take much of that pressure off of them. They're able to kind of jump to the back line in a lot of cases and take enemies out without needing to have those tanks out in front soaking that damage up. So Robin is a really great champion. He's must-have if you're going to be building a Teen Titans team early on, I think, and especially for free-to-play players who are going to have difficulties pulling Nightwing to a higher level than, let's say, Blue Stars. And we'll talk about the healers just momentarily. Obviously, Raven has that Justice League Dark tag synergy, and for the most part, if you build Justice League Dark, Raven's going to go with that team, especially for your ship lineups and for your 3v3 teams. Raven's going to fit in or slot in with Justice League Dark better than anywhere else. If you don't go for Constantine, Raven could be a good first healer for your Teen Titans team. Most likely that's what you'll have to do because Starfire is much further along in the bleed. But Raven provides a ton of support for your champions that take a lot of damage. And so she has the ability to save your Nightwing or your Robin if he's getting DPS down in the back line. She can basically swap places with that champion, and then she heals them up as well. So it takes a lot of pressure off of the team, and sometimes you end up losing Raven because of that, but typically the whole point is that she saves your team long enough for you to do that final bit of damage to win the match. Highly recommend Raven for PvP-focused Teen Titans builds. But if you really want the ultimate healer for your Teen Titans team, it's going to be Starfire hands down. She's going to put shields on your champions, and if you have her legacy weapon, she's really going to be it's going to be difficult for her to let any of your team members die, especially if you have a lot of force invested into her and you're able to pull her to purple stars or higher. Really impactful champion. I have her at just 1 purple, and I do find ways to utilize her in combat cycle and in 3v3 strategic challenge. Obviously, my Teen Titans champions aren't quite as built up as some of my colleagues and other folks who've been playing the game for a while. But I can't recommend Starfire enough. She's almost a must-pull regardless of what lineup you're trying to build, just because of how impactful she is as a healer, and especially if you're like a light spender who does not have Green Lantern at high star levels, Starfire is going to be that kind of top-end healer for your team, with the exception of maybe Crypto being right up there with her, depending on what use cases you have. And finally, the most impactful champion for any Teen Titans lineup. He has Teen Titans synergy. He has Bat Family synergy. So if you're able to combine those two and get a team that has both of those tag synergies, as well as the Weapon Master tag synergy, Nightwing is going to put out massive amounts of damage. Now, those aren't like exclusive. They're not required for you to have a well-built Nightwing and to have a impactful Teen Titans team, but ideally that's what you want to be going for. I've seen some whales testing this, trying to put in other champions and like lose the tag synergies, but use more impactful champions in the roster. And it does work, but only if you have those champions you're bringing in really well built. I think if you have just kind of a blue or purple star team with your Teen Titans and Bat Family champions, really going to make a lot more sense to utilize those tag synergies because it's going to kickstart your Nightwing. But I personally think that if you're a person who doesn't want to spend a lot and is willing to just brutally save, you can essentially start an account on a fresh server, save up for your Nightwing, maybe one other bleed champion that you pull for early on to help you out. But you pull for Nightwing as high as you can get him into the purple or even maybe low yellow stars if you get incredibly lucky. And then you can build a team around Nightwing that's going to basically keep you in the top 50, top 25, maybe even top 10 in your combat cycle, and allow you to compete against some of the higher spending whales. You do need to save and put those Eskrima 6 on Nightwing, but the nice thing is you can get away with the T-Sphere or some of the other lower level mythic legacy pieces. It's just that as soon as you're able to get those Eskrima sticks, you can use that second best legacy piece on your Robin if you're going to use him in the roster, and it just makes the team that much more powerful. When we talked about that Bat family synergy, so I'm bringing you over to the Bat family champions, and we'll talk a little bit about some of the ways that you can utilize these champions in conjunction with those Teen Titans champions to bring together a more complete team. So fewer options for Bat family here, but the nice thing is that 3 of them actually have the Teen Titans synergy as well. So gives you a lot of optionality to kind of build your team around. Now, I've seen some people opt for using Batman instead of Red Robin for that tank champion up front. I've seen them use both, but again, you're kind of losing out on some of the other synergies if you go that route. You know, the nice thing about using Batman in a Teen Titans roster is you'll get that Bat family synergy, and he's also got the Justice League tag, and he's got that Weapon Master tag. So that's going to allow you to activate that third tag synergy for your Nightwing potentially. And you'll be able to put together some interesting rosters that include Cyborg and Atom. Now, that doesn't always work out, and in some cases, it may not be the most optimal way to build this team, but it's just going to give you some optionality whenever you're trying to figure out maybe a specific combat cycle boss or a training sim node that you can't quite beat. We do have Red Hood here available to use, and obviously he is worth using when you first start your account. He will start tapering off, and eventually, like by the time you have Nightwing in your roster, he's clearly going to be replaced there. So you might maybe try to use Red Hood as like that 5th champion while you're waiting to get Nightwing, and you're using Robin as your main damage dealer, but eventually Red Hood is going to go away. Now, I say that, but we do expect to see a mythic ascension very soon from one of the other legendary champions, and it's most likely going to either be Red Hood or Catwoman. I'm really hoping it's Red Hood, and that might change the calculus a little bit for building out your, Teen Titans Bat Family synergy team. So we'll kind of see how that plays out. But the most important Bat Family champion that you can be using with your Teen Titans Nightwing roster is going to be Batgirl. Everything about Batgirl's kit is designed around adding crit rate to her allies, and she also has a basic attack that's going to increase the crit rate of the highest attack ally on your team that doesn't have existing buffs. So most likely you're going to be able to buff your Nightwing with this tactical drone, but if not, you're also going to be getting the ultimate, which transfers energy and increases all allies' crit rate by a certain percentage for a few seconds. It is 15 seconds, so typically once you get the match started, she's going to be able to continue to cycle that ultimate, and you're just constantly going to have that crit rate increase. And that's on top of the crit rate that you're going to be getting from the Bat Family tag synergy. So Batgirl is actually incredibly useful and required if you're building Nightwing. You must have Batgirl in your lineup if possible. So if we put all of this together, one of, I think, the better options that you can run for Nightwing is going to be Nightwing, Robin, Cyborg, Batgirl, and Starfire. That's going to get you 4 Teen Titans tag synergy bonus, the 3 Bat Family tag synergy bonus, and 4 Weapon Master. There are obviously some other options that you have here to kind of make this team work for whatever game mode that you're in. Obviously, this one here is going to have very little protection, so your backline is going to end up face tanking a lot of the damage, or either you're going to get a lot of focus on your Nightwing and your Robin, so you really need to be doing a lot of damage at the very beginning of the fight. Luckily, you have that crit rate and crit damage that's going to help you there. If you are struggling with this lineup, I think the first recommendation that I would have is to take Cyborg out and go for either Red Robin or Batman to give you some tankiness up front. And the nice thing about doing that is you really only lose that one Teen Titans bonus. You're still going to get the 3 tag. And while you might end up losing a little bit of damage dealing ability, it's still going to keep your team alive for the full match, especially in something like Combat Cycle, which ends up doing net more damage over time. That's going to be all the time we have today for this Teen Titans deep dive video. Hope you enjoyed it, and I hope this is something you find helpful. I haven't been doing a lot of these team deep dives on the channel, and I think I'm going to change that. I do think it's helpful to kind of talk through all of the team members as a whole and then talk about some of the best teams that you can build with them. I know I started releasing that tag team synergy guide tier list, and I think that one needs a little bit of work. I do want to work on giving rankings for those teams and adjusting the teams that are included there. We're probably going to go to kind of a top 10 teams set up for the next one that we do in September. And I can almost guarantee you that there will be at least one Teen Titans and Batfam team on there when we do that. Let me know in the comments below if you're using Teen Titans or Bat Family and the roster that you're using. I'm sure that some people will find that helpful. I love hearing from the Teen Titans and Bat Family experts because for the most part, it's been a setup that has kind of been counter meta. Not a lot of people have built into it. Let me know your highest training sim level using this team. Let me know how it fares for you in PvP, all those good things. Love to hear that kind of feedback. It definitely helps me a lot with future planning and making new videos. I get DMs all the time from people who want to share, some lessons learned or some things maybe that I missed in one of these deep dive videos. So keep those things coming. And if you liked this video, I got a ton of more videos on the channel for you. If you're new to the channel, I've got plenty of playlists set up so that you can binge through all of those. And I look forward to seeing you in the next video.